What I'm interested in finding out is how many of you are, if I draw a line like this, who thinks they're from a company with the largest number of employees? What is that?
950.
Is that what company is that?
The county.
The county, okay. So that's a lot of folks. And smaller? Down in the 10 to 2 to 5?
One.
One. You're a one-man shop.
Or 0.3 if you factor in me working for 4 different companies at the same time.
I see. So a lot of you are solopreneurs. Okay. Which I didn't quite anticipate. You got 10, what company is that?
Tradeware.
Okay, so
That includes some external.
so now on different levels of project management maturity, how many people feel they're pretty high in project management maturity? Okay, so you've got a medium, all right, and just trying to figure out what this thing is. Okay, so I've kind of pitched this in here. So those of you who are up here, my apologies, and it's just a way to, because it's always about the basics.
It's always about learning.
Okay, all right. So this is what I did is taught a bunch of classes at HP, and it was very structured around the PMBOK. You know, if people don't know this acronym, you don't need to know it. It stands for the Project Management Body of Knowledge. Has anybody had any brush with the PMBOK? Are you a PMP or no?
Never mind.
You skipped it, huh?
I skipped it.
Okay,
I know it, I've used it, I've skipped it.
okay.
I wasn't going for my certification.
Same with you, Dave?
Yeah, I went for my certification, so I'm pretty familiar with it.
Okay. So this is the rule book. This is the way you're supposed to do things for very large projects. And a lot of people found that, wait a minute, we don't need all this stuff. We're not a Mack truck, we're just a smaller, what's the example of a small car these days? You say it's a Fiat 500? Is that politically correct? So I developed this project management Streetgain class. One of the things that's changed a lot in everybody's world is this. Do you know how many times you access your phone per day? How does that degrade your attention? Or does it? A lot. And how does that change our collaborative environment? And I'm asking the millennials back there. So how many of you do most of your work on a phone? Any of you?
Do you mean most of the work, or just that we could access the work on the phone?
Access the work on the phone. Okay.
About half.
What?
About half. I mean, I need to use a large screen for a lot of the organization, but just the follow-up using phone and Google Drive and all that is very helpful.
Okay, so
I would have to define using phone. Are we talking? Are we talking internet access? Are we talking apps?
yes,
How are you using the phone?
yes. I mean, it's a device. And but it impacts project communication, because that's what project communication is about, or projects are about. And then especially this stuff. Is this important anymore? After last week, after the last couple of weeks. So, oh, why is it running ahead? So, how many of you use the good old-fashioned? I'm showing this again because it's to ease into the subject. How many of you use this? Okay, regularly? Okay.
Yeah, less and less, but still, use it a lot.
Okay. And are you doing all the preparatory work to put the data in there, or are you just slamming it in?
You mean working with teams to gather
Yes.
the information? Yes.
Okay. So that's one thing that is I find is interesting. People want to just jump on this software and create the waterfall, and they may not know what's really behind this thing. And this is one reason why I'm really big on flip charts, on actual this is called face-to-face communication, rare thing. Have any of you experienced some of these new tools like Trello or Monday? And how do you find those?
I've never found the perfect project management software tool, but I keep trying.
Okay. And what's the weakness with this one for you?
I'm using Flow, which looks very similar to that. I think it's, in real life, it doesn't always work step by step, even if at the outset of a project, seems like it should.
In other words, these activities are supposed to somehow show some notion of being sequential. Okay. Any of you?
We looked into Trello, but it felt like the time it would take to set it all up, and we weren't certain it would be functional.
Uh-huh.
So it's more like there's so many choices and things like that, just which one is functional,
Uh-huh.
instead of spending hours setting each one up and trying them out.
So what did you? Here I've got Monday here, or asana. Did you settle on that?
No, I'm trying to remember what we settled on. But then again, we just came back to using Google Drive and sharing the documents
It
and
was
just having staff meetings kind of thing. So still looking for a project management tool that works
uh-huh.
for collaboration outside of face-to-face. I mean, you need both.
Okay. That's part of my message. That's why I'm putting this up front. So this is the topic of today. Dave, would you like to articulate what you understand as the issue here?
Well, I mean, waterfall is the more traditional sequential structuring of
All right, so
project.
activity B, C, R, S, Q.
Right. And Agile is based on sprints and getting things in place quickly rather than methodically.
So what's the downside of this waterfall for knowledge work projects? And I'll talk about that in a moment.
Projects always fail
The project's always,
with waterfall. The larger the projects, the more chance of failing using that approach.
because,
You just get overwhelmed with minutia. And the projects I worked on in waterfall, they certainly never came in on time and rarely on budget. It was just not a very good way of
okay.
managing it.
Well, part of the problem is if you identify a change here, fish have a hard time swimming upstream. Okay? In other words, if you find a missed requirement here, you got to go back here and put it in here and then design to it and then build to it and code to it and test to it, et cetera. So along comes these various adaptive methodologies which say Ooh, we have a requirement. Ooh, we've got another requirement. Ooh, we've got another requirement. Ooh, another one, another one. And let's try to somehow, first of all, size these things. In other words, estimate them, and then put in their importance. And this is particularly in the area of software. So let's say we choose to do this one, and this one. And then these get put in a time-boxed, what is it called? Sprint, right? So we've got these three things, and we do those three things, and then we have something to show the customer. Are you happy with this? Customer is much more engaged. So, at least from my experience, this is definitely a better way to go, except what happens? What's the big question?
I feel like there's no ending point.
Yeah,
Agreed.
when are we done?
Yeah.
When's it ever going to be done? So, I think the jury is still out trying to find some way to combine these things together and come up with a methodology that works. I just know one of the projects I did over a decade ago, I literally did not meet the developer in the next room. My work, my analysis work, was hand delivered by a project manager, and she was the other side of the door. I met her once. How successful do you think the project was? So one of the things I'm getting here to is communication is the key. So will you take a moment and come up with what are your major project challenges? Just somebody blurts something out.
Communication.
What about communication?
Getting people from different sites aligned on a common idea of what the goal is and how to, and what the constraints are as well.
Okay.
Lack of dedicated resources.
Lack of resources.
Kind of tagging on to the top one, it's like you start a project not fully understanding that people aren't in agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere in the middle, you find out you're not in agreement, so like what would be the process, what's like an efficient process to pause and get to agreement and then move forward? So just assuming that you're just going to start the project and hit all your process points and just complete it, but like what happens when there's a problem and you really need to reevaluate what
Okay.
you're doing?
I was gonna say, really be understanding from the beginning, really what are the project requirements? What are the real end goals gotta be?
From the outset.
Well, have you really identified your stakeholders and your, I would say knight in shining armor, that's not the right term. The sponsors, thank you. Well, those are issues.
Yeah,
I've-
that you haven't identified them.
Oh, I've identified them and they were wrong.
Okay.
What you're told and what actually happened. I was using the term knight in shining armor because they're supposed to defend you against the outsiding political forces to get the project to happen. This-
Not having realistic ideals, timeline required.
Unrealistic timeline.
In the budget.
I mean, there's so many human elements and managing those, mostly the hardest part, I don't know how to put that specifically, but managing human behavior.
Oh, people.
Yeah,
People.
that,
Inclusive.
I think waterfall would work fine if there was that element.
Okay. Any more?
I think just changing requirements, as the project's going, the environment around you isn't static either, whether it's a new sponsor that came in to replace the old sponsor or changing technology.
Or regulations. As the regulations change,
Mhm.
then you're stuck with having to change in response.
So this is way more than I bargained for here. Changing regs and regs. What industry are you in?
Biotech.
So this is my simple old list. Of the top 5. So what can you do about this? What can you do about these things?
Even just share that list with the group, understanding that this is the challenge and how
Mhm.
can we get ahead of as much of it as we can.
There is that political aspect is bosses, sponsors, executives want to make their mark and they want to show what they can do, or the regulation requires that something be done by a certain date, and so you have to stop everything that you're doing. So this is a big challenge. Now, because I lost most of my other presentation, I'm in default to a kind of standard thing. Just very briefly, I didn't know what the level of the audience here. So what is the project? Build something tangible. How many of you build something tangible? What do you build?
Autonomous vehicles for factories, move materials in factories.
Okay, that's tangible. But it has a lot of intangibles in it. Software, controller cards, etc. So fix something, that's a tangible. Build something intangible, so like an event management. Anybody here does event management? What kind of?
Most recently, the farm trail of the
So that's a project. And it has a huge planning cycle and a short execution cycle. Whereas other projects may have a lot of planning and then a long execution and then doing some so-called monitoring and controlling. Fix something intangible, so like business process improvement, that's even more daunting to me than software, because you're dealing with processes that are maybe not well defined in the beginning. So, PMBOK definition is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result, temporary in that it is defined beginning and end in time, and therefore a defined scope and resources. So this is for you in the larger organization, the idea that projects are not operations. In other words, the picture on the bottom there is showing a assembly line, and things are coming, the daily flow or routine of work, and suddenly you have some kind of change. the company, I mean, I think of this every Tuesday where I live, the garbage trucks come right on time. And how many men are in a garbage truck now? One. Because they've got those, you know, those. And I went to that that company in Minnesota that makes those things. And it was pretty amazing to see, you know, it was the week that the factory was down, or 2 weeks the factory was down, and I was with the engineers. But is that a good thing that we have those things, or does? So what happens to employment? Anyway, another story.
Those people do other jobs.
Probably easier on their physical bodies too.
Mhm.
You know, kind of the mechanics, I don't know.
So one of the questions that you have to ask yourself if you're starting to put together a project management methodology in your organization is, what constitutes a small, medium, and large project? And therefore, what would require lots of process to go into it? So this is something from the PMI website. Less than 6 months, between 6 months and 12 months, greater than 12 months. Now, how many of you have projects longer than 12 months? What's the risk in that?
High. Yeah, it's just high. There's so many things that can go wrong on a daily basis.
But technology can change, regulations can change. One of the things I saw is that with Alameda County, I worked with their IT group, and they had a 3-tiered project sizing. And the largest tier had to get involved because it was involved with the drivers of the buses, had to get involved with unions, and so it was a whole different level of complexity. Whereas things that were internal were more on the shorter side over here.
What timeline was that, were those budgets, when was that slide made? Because I can think of a number of small projects that easily go $500,000 on the full project as a small business. I mean, if you segment it down into all the little pieces, sure, but when you start looking at the whole
Yeah.
thing, it's viewed as a small project, but it's bigger numbers. Also, we've had inflationary factors.
We don't have inflation.
Right.
Okay.
That's the problem with long-term projects, really long-term. It's cross-second.
So another way to look at a project is we're going from a current state, we've got some current state of affairs, to some future state. And we're going to look at this again in a moment. And we have to ask ourselves whether we're going in the right direction. So another thing related to this knowledge work is in the good old-fashioned knowledge work paradigm, you had architects and designers who would design something, and they would throw it over the wall, and then somebody would construct it. But in knowledge work, it's all being done by the same resources. So there's a lot of potential confusion there and add-on. So everybody know the triple constraints? And what's the big deal about the triple constraints?
Change one and you blow the other two away.
You always blow them away?
In my cases, yeah.
Okay.
Well, blow them away from the standpoint of it causes major headaches and hassles. Not that they go away.
Okay. So in other words, Dan, you got another way to explain it?
Well, they're all interrelated, and anything that impacts one impacts all of them. And so they all have to be monitored and controlled simultaneously.
So here's an addition to traditional constraints plus a few more: risk, resources, customer satisfaction, and quality, which has made the old-fashioned project much more complex. So one of the things that is a little tool I want to, does everybody have a piece of paper? Let me see if I got this later. Okay, I'll get it later. Let's do it now. Grab a piece of paper. Is everybody working on a project now? Yes? And so this is a tool you might not be familiar with. And it helps to clarify in advance, to set expectations about what is the most important of these constraints. Or you're going to do it on, a digital device.
Oops.
Oh, wow, okay. You forgot you were 60? Okay. So here's this grid. And we've got schedule, scope, and cost. And we could add another vector. And we're going to say one of these things is not flexible. Another one is somewhat flexible. Another one is more flexible, very flexible, or more flexible. And I want you to fill this for your current project. You play tic-tac-toe. You understand what I mean by that? You're going to fill in. You only get one in each column. So it starts out like this, right? That's the way the sponsor views it. But John, what did you get?
I still haven't figured out how to put everything I'm doing in those boxes yet.
But this is on a high level.
I'm not sure I understand completely.
So what I want to find out is what's really going to happen on this project. In order for us to meet the schedule, are we going to not do all the scope? And it's going to cost more? In order to meet the cost requirements, we may slip the schedule and not do all the scope. In order to do all the scope, is it going to cost us more and we'll slip the schedule? Chris, what did you come up with?
On mine, the cost is the least flexible. Scope would be the most flexible.
And what's the nature of the project, can you share?
It's a software development project.
So you got limited funds.
So we have set resources, that'll be our cost. So it is set resources in terms of programmers. We've got a very large wish list, but we get to, it's our own product offering. So we have a very large wish list of potential things like we'd like to have in it.
Mhm.
But we have flexibility on what we actually implement.
So does this help or hinder in your communication internally?
It would probably help. I mean, anything that lets us sort of be aware of and discuss the different aspects of the project would definitely help.
Okay. Bruce, did you do this? Do you have, as a one-man shop, how does it?
Juggling multiple projects simultaneously. Yes, I understand the need to adjust accordingly. I was also smiling because I was thinking of a couple of clients who did not understand all the aspects of it and pushed down onto the team members certain requirements. And our initial plan of time and costs were true, but they didn't meet with management's desires. And so they modified what we told them. And we met our expectations, which did not make upper management happy. Because we were truthful in what we said, how long it was going to take, and what the resources were going to be, and what the deliverables would look like. And they had seriously modified those.
Uh-huh.
Hence, I have a sensitivity to politics, to business politics.
Right. Anyone else? Didn't come up with it?
For mine, I would say that the schedule is not flexible because there's a set date, but then the scope and the costs. And this is still somewhat flexible. I wouldn't say one of them is more flexible.
So is it good to know in advance what kind of stress you might be having? And that's what this kind of tool does. And then it can change through the course of the project. And when it does, and I've seen this used at HP as part of a tiny little part of every status report, this little box, to remind people, hey, this is what we said initially, is what our goals are. Pam, how does yours fall out?
Mine fell out that the schedule was not flexible. The scope was somewhat flexible, and the cost was most flexible.
Does management like that?
No, management has them all lined up neatly on the left.
Mhm.
Which part of HP are you talking about? Or is this before they broke into two?
This was after Agilent was created and before Compaq.
Actually,
What?
it's the beginning of 2000.
Right. So a lot of people don't know this tool can be useful, real-life application to help communicate stuff. So those of you who are not familiar with this in a larger organization, the different polarities between a traditional functional organization and in a functional organization, everyone has a day job. In other words, I can't work on your project because I have my functional responsibilities. At the opposite end is what? Projectized. Which means what? Everyone's on a project. So the project ends, no home. And then somewhere in between is this thing called a matrix. And the deal about the matrix is two bosses. And how do you manage that? How does this play out in your world? Diana?
People don't have time to do the project work because they've got their everyday
Right.
stuff.
In a county organization, in a government organization, hard to change because everybody's...
Functional stuff is priority.
Right. And then, so Jeff, how do I bet you're a projectized cowboy, right?
Pardon?
You're a projectized cowboy?
What do you mean project?
I mean, you work from project to project?
I did, yes, yeah. And usually what happened with the waterfall projects, the longer they went, it got so complicated that you're spending more time managing the project than actually plowing ahead. There's a lot of overhead.
Uh-huh.
So the last project I worked on was a combination, where we had fair requirements, so everyone agreed on where we were heading.
Mhm.
So we did the agile routine. We just threw something up on the screen and let the customer comment about it.
Okay. So I didn't know exactly how long this was going to take, but this is the standard project life cycle. I just went through it. Initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, control, and closing. Probably a lot of you know that already. What I want to focus on is setting expectations and a little exercise to get you out of your chair. And so if I push this, doesn't that turn it off? So let's see, can you all, how many have we got here? 2, 5, 8, 11, 14, 15. You want to participate?
No, I need to work the camera.
All right. So let me know if you've seen this game before. I'd like you to rearrange your chairs. There's going to be 3 groups. Deanna, can you come down farther, closer to me? And Phil, sit behind her. And then the 3 of you, can you take that chair out there? Just take it out. And clump together. So that's one group. No, can you, Glenn, can you, yeah, come on down, face over here.
Sure.
Sam, can you, no, face the other way. Face the other direction.
Okay.
Can you be behind him? Just to face like this. And the rest of the 3 of you fill in behind him in a T formation. And do you have a pen? Everybody have a pen? And so the rest of you, can you move forward a little bit? And John, be behind him, and the other 2 of you will be behind him. So you have a formation like this. A T formation. And from now on, why don't you participate? So yeah, why don't you be in that group? Or you, oh, why don't you guys both, you're not gonna,
Oh, well, okay. I thought I was supposed to be over here.
no, we got 3 here. We need 3 people in the back here.
Oh.
So can you grab a chair? And can you pass these out to your group? Pass these out to your group. Pass these out to your group. And I'm going to give you your instructions, but do not look at them. I'll tell you when you can look at them.
It's like high school.
It is. Can you pass that? Oh, okay. I see. There's supposed to be one more person.
You're gonna have to join our team.
Can you guys, 2 guys move back? And John, you're in this middle row here. Just want to move your chair.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I have some paper, or do I need a bigger one?
No, this is. Do not read the instructions yet. And you're going to play 2 roles.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I get it.
Okay, so you have your team structure. From now on, this person will be designated as person A. This person will be designated as person B. This person is C, D, and E. That's your role, and you have a double role.
Yeah.
Okay. Communication will go as follows. A communicates with B, B with A, B with C, C with B, B with D, D with, etc. But I said communication, there will be no talking. So you're going to communicate with those little project communication forms that I passed out to you, right? And on the project communication form, you're going to say to who is going and who you are. So it'll be something like to A from B. Remember, C couldn't communicate directly with A. To A from B. And let's see what else. When you have the answer, because the goal of this project is to solve an analytical problem. When you have the answer, send a message to the boss. To boss from B. And anyone on the team can get the answer. Okay? And you have 15 minutes. We have time to do this? Do we have time to do this? Can everybody stay a little longer? Okay, go. Turn over your papers and raise your hand. And I will see, I'm the messenger. I'm going to see that the message gets passed to you. Have you done this before?
No.
So read your instructions. What? When you have a message, raise your hand. What? You can communicate with B. Anything. But the goal is to solve an analytical problem. You can do this.
So what are you sending, a symbol,
You send a message,
written message, or the symbol?
whatever you want to communicate. Okay, he raises his hand to B from A. To C from B. Are you C?
Yeah, I'm C, I gave it to B.
Okay. Oh, C to B.
Yeah.
Okay. Ready to send a message?
I sent him one, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I didn't know I wasn't allowed to.
Yeah, I got to use the messenger. Actually, because it was shortness of time, why don't you just go ahead and hand the message to your recipient? You read it, and the goal is to solve an analytical problem. So do you have once you've solved the problem, you send a message to the boss.
The messages that I'm receiving at B,
Mhm.
do they have to be rewritten to go to A, or can I give
You can just
B
forward them,
like a forward?
but make sure it's clear.
Still on.
Okay, we've almost gone, how many minutes? 6. This is real exciting on video, I bet.
Oh, yeah.
Grass, I could show some grass.
So after 8 minutes, stop what you're doing here for a moment. Group number 1, A person, what's your percent complete? Diana?
Percent complete?
Yes,
90%.
90%, all right. B person,
I got like one task, so I have like 20%.
20%. C person? Are you C?
Yeah,
0?
zero.
D?
No idea. For,
Okay.
for my own part or for
Yeah.
overall?
For your own part.
50%.
50, he changes his mind. E?
Well, I sent my first message, so as far as I'm concerned, I'm 100% done.
You're done. Have you solved the analytical problem?
Not really.
No. Okay. So,
Depends on which problem you want to do. What are we talking about?
all right. Group 2. Back here, what is your,
Percent complete?
yes.
About 75. Let's see. And we're back.
80%, all right. You can keep on working. I should have started this earlier. B person,
If I understand the objective clearly, I'd say 80% too.
80%, all right. C,
Zero.
0.
Yeah,
And you're playing double role here.
B and E, so I'll do double zero.
Double 0. And group 3, you have the answer. You have the answer to the analytical problem. So what's your percent complete? 20. 20. Zero. 100. You have the answer? Well, send it to me. If you've got the answer, you put it in there. So. Okay. Okay, carry on. Let's get at least another 8-minute period in here.
How about
5? Okay. Oh, man. All right, 5 minutes.
Yeah, did you want to see it?
Congratulations.
Oh, the one symbol that was underneath.
All right, so after 6.5 minutes here, we have a winner in group 1. Anyone else close? You got 2 more minutes, you can pull it out of the bag. You got an answer?
Daryl.
All right. After 9.5 minutes. Now, let me just take a quick pulse of the teams. A person here knows she's 100% complete. B, are you sure? C, D, and E, are you sure you're 100% complete? You are? What about back here? A person is 100% complete. What about the rest of you? What are your numbers? 0. What about?
50%, because I have some idea of what we're working on now.
Oh, yes?
But since I can't communicate with A.
Okay, so are you getting any closer? No. Okay. All right, can you just get in a circle with your group? And A person, can you share your instructions?
Which symbol everyone has. So I sent the message for everyone to send shapes of their symbols so I can compile them and find out, but I can get them all.
But when were you given those instructions? Because that is not on my paper.
It's written right here.
I didn't get any of those.
I was trying to wait.
You didn't know what I was shooting for. So all I sent was send all the symbols you have on your paper, then I could find out which one we all have.
We never got that information.
But somebody did.
And then the last message I sent at the end was send all 5 symbols. I tried to be clear.
Did I give, who did I not give this to?
I did not
You didn't get that one. Did you get this one?
until the very end by that time.
No, I haven't gotten that one.
So my objective was to get everyone to send a drawing of every symbol on their paper. Then I could find the one symbol we all have.
Which
But I
one-
never got
Let's
enough.
show our papers which symbol is it. No, I understand.
It looks like it's the arrow because everyone has.
Or the sideways heart.
I don't,
You don't have a
You have the
sideways
arrow, but
I got a check mark. You don't have to check.
Okay, do you get the idea?
Yeah, but it helps having instructions.
Is this anything like real life? Is this one thing you could take away? What would you take away from this class after this exercise?
for top management to explain what the group is.
All right, can you, Pam, Pam's going to repeat that. Can you listen up to Pam?
Oh, my idea was that it would be good for top management to explain what we're really supposed to do.
Okay, thank you. When top management tells what the project objective is, oh! And the other thing that can happen in this exercise, sometimes people from the back row can get the answer. They take charge.
But they couldn't really do it without breaking the rules.
Well, you could ask what is,
Off the top.
you could ask it by a message, what is the objective?
Oh, okay.
So, well, no, but why are the rules? The rules are like, can you always go into the top executive's office? No.
Yes?
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, whether you walk in to work tomorrow, the next day, that's the question you would ask.
Okay.
You can always walk into the boss.
Okay. Well, so that was my main thrust of this class. Should have started earlier. Next time we'll know.
Now we all feel totally inadequate.
When I do a class like this in 2 or 3 days, we take one of your real projects, run it through the initiating phases, the planning phases, come up with a real bar chart and a network diagram, do some risks, then do some what-if scenarios, and you come up with a real-life project plan that you can use for one of your projects. So, if anyone wants my card,